Welcome back to our channel. That penny from 1961, 1982, 2001 or 2008 might be worth more than a cent. In 2014, a 1961 D-graded MS-67 sold for $14,406. 2008 missing clad errors can fetch hundreds. Think your penny is just pocket change? Like and subscribe to discover hidden penny fortunes. Every day we pass them by, barely noticing. Pennies scattered in jars, dropped in parking lots, lining the bottoms of purses. They feel almost too common to care about. But what if I told you that one ordinary-looking penny from 1961 could actually hold a secret worth up to $130,000? That a simple copper coin, minted in the millions, could carry within it a rare flaw or anomaly that turns it into a collector's dream? This is the story of the 1961 US 1-cent penny, a tiny piece of history that proves sometimes the most valuable treasures are the ones hiding in plain sight. The early 1960s were a time of incredible change in America. John F. Kennedy had just taken office as president, the space race was heating up, and the U.S. Mint was running at full capacity to keep up with a booming economy. In 1961 alone, the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced more than 1.7 billion Lincoln cents combined. They rolled off the presses at an astonishing pace, each bearing Victor David Brenner's timeless design, Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, introduced just 2 years earlier in 1959 to commemorate his 150th birthday. At a glance, every 1961 penny looks the same. But among those billions are a select few that came out just slightly different. To seasoned collectors, those differences are worth a second look, and sometimes, a small fortune. Some of the most famous rarities from 1961 involve doubled die obverse errors. These happen when the die that stamps the coin shifts ever so slightly between impressions during its creation, producing a doubled image that transfers to every coin it strikes. On a 1961 penny, that doubling might appear in the date itself, or in the delicate letters of Liberty, or even in the crisp words, "In God We Trust," above Lincoln's head. At first glance, the doubling can be subtle, but to a collector, it's a thrilling sight. Then there are off-metal and transitional planchet errors. With so many coins being minted at such high speeds, mistakes were inevitable. Occasionally, a blank intended for another denomination would find its way into the penny press, resulting in a coin with a strange weight or an unusual color. Some 1961 pennies have been discovered struck on dime planchets, producing a lighter, silvery-looking scent. Others bear a telltale incomplete rim or slightly undersized diameter. These accidental combinations, created in the chaos of production, are among the rarest and most sought-after mistakes a collector can find. Condition matters enormously. Most pennies that entered circulation in 1961 have been spent and spent again, worn smooth by decades of pocket change and cash registers. Their surfaces dull, their details faded. But once in a while, someone set one aside, storing it away in a roll or a jar, keeping its sharp luster and brilliant copper-red color intact. Those few high-grade examples, particularly if they also carry a rare error, can command astronomical prices at auction. The difference between a good coin and a great one can be just a fraction of a grade, but the impact on value is staggering. The proof coins of 1961, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, also add intrigue to the story. These special coins were made for collectors, struck with extra care and polished dies to produce a mirror-like finish. Even among proofs, though, rare double dies and striking errors occasionally slipped through. A proof penny with a dramatic double die can ignite fierce bidding, especially when it has been preserved in pristine condition. Stories of these find surface every now and then, sparking hope in collectors and casual hobbyists alike. A retired man in Pennsylvania once discovered a 1961 double-die penny in a childhood collection his father had saved, selling it at auction for over $60,000. A young woman sorting through a box of inherited coins found what she thought was just an ordinary cent, only to realize it was a rare off-metal strike that brought her more than $90,000. It's moments like these that make coin collecting such an endlessly fascinating pursuit, the thrill of finding history, the wonder of uncovering value where no one else thought to look. The Lincoln cent itself is a symbol of American endurance and ingenuity. Introduced in 1909, it was the first circulating U.S. coin to feature the likeness of an actual person, replacing the Indian head cent with a dignified portrait of the nation's beloved president. The addition of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse in 1959 gave it a new chapter, aligning it with the post-war optimism and national pride of the era. By 1961, it had become a fixture of everyday life, a humble, copper-colored reminder of the country's past and its bright future, and yet, in its very ubiquity lies its mystery. We see so many pennies every day that we stop looking. But for those who still take the time to examine them, to tilt them to the light and peer at the tiniest details, there are still wonders to be found. The 1961 penny is a perfect example of how even a coin that seems ordinary can turn out to be extraordinary. A rare error or a flawless gem hiding among billions of its kind. Collectors still pay close attention whenever a remarkable 1961 penny appears at auction. The bidding can be intense, the excitement palpable, as everyone hopes to add one of these rare pieces to their collection. And the market continues to reward those who can spot the difference between the ordinary and the exceptional, between copper worth a cent and copper worth a fortune. So the next time you find yourself with a handful of change, pause for a moment. Look at the dates, the details, the subtle imperfections. Pay special attention to any penny from 1961. Because if you're one of the lucky few to uncover a rare double die, an off-metal strike, or a high-grade proof from that year, you could be holding a coin worth between $56,000 and $130,000. In the smallest of places, in the most unexpected moments, great treasures are waiting to be discovered, if only you're willing to look a little closer. Every day we reach into our pockets, pull out some change, and barely give it a glance. Pennies slip between couch cushions, get tossed into jars, or left behind in trays, written off as too common to be worth our time. But what if one of those pennies wasn't just worth a cent? What if one of them, hiding in plain sight, was actually worth as much as $115,000? Tonight, we uncover the hidden history and astonishing value of the 1982 U.S. 1-cent penny, a coin that teaches us how even the most ordinary things can hold extraordinary secrets. The story of the 1982 penny begins in an era of transition. The early 1980s were tough on the U.S. economy, with inflation driving up the cost of everything, including the metals used to mint coins. Since 1909, the Lincoln cent had been struck primarily from copper, with 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. But by 1981, the cost of producing a single penny was nearing, and at times exceeding, its own face value. It simply wasn't sustainable for the U.S. Mint to keep making pennies this way. In 1982, the Mint decided to change the composition of the penny from mostly copper to a core of zinc coated with copper. This new zinc penny weighed less and was much cheaper to produce. But here's where the story gets fascinating. The transition wasn't as simple as flipping a switch. The Philadelphia and Denver mints both struck pennies with both compositions for months as they phased out the old copper blanks. And because of this overlap, 1982 is the only year in U.S. coinage history when 7 different varieties of Lincoln cents were produced, a combination of copper and zinc coins, large and small date designs, from both mints. It was a year of experimentation and adjustment, and it left behind a treasure trove of collectible varieties. At a glance, the differences between the varieties are subtle. The large and small dates refer to minor differences in the size and shape of the numbers in the date on the obverse of the coin. Copper and zinc cents can often be distinguished by weight. The copper coins weigh about 3.11 grams, while the zinc ones weigh closer to 2.5 grams. Most of the time, a 1982 penny is worth face value, but among the billions produced, rare errors and unusual combinations slipped through that are now worth tens of thousands of dollars. One of the most famous is the 1982 D small date struck on a copper planchet. Denver was supposed to have switched entirely to zinc by the time the small date dies were being used. Yet, at least one, and possibly more, slipped through struck on the older, heavier copper blanks. This combination of a small date design and a copper planchet from the Denver Mint is one of the rarest and most valuable modern pennies ever discovered. A single example sold at auction for over $18,000 years ago, and prices have only climbed as more collectors seek to own one of these historic mistakes. But the surprises don't stop there. Double die obverse errors, where the die shifted during production and created a doubled image, have been reported on some 1982 pennies. The doubling can often be seen in the lettering of Liberty or In God We Trust, or even in the date itself. While some of these doubling effects are minor, strong and clear examples can command astronomical prices among collectors, especially when paired with a high mint state grade, and then there are off-metal and transitional planchet errors. During the hectic production year, it wasn't uncommon for the wrong blank to make its way into the penny presses. Some 1982 pennies have been found struck on dime planchets, resulting in an undersized, silvery penny. Others were struck on improperly prepared blanks, leaving them with odd colors or weights. Each of these anomalies tells the story of a busy mint under pressure, and each one has become a unique piece of history worth far more than face value. The Lincoln Memorial design, which first appeared in 1959, was still featured on the reverse of the 1982 penny, and its crisp lines and dignified columns remain one of the most iconic images in American coinage. But during this transitional year, even that familiar design became a canvas for mistakes and innovations, creating a fascinating playground for collectors and historians alike. Auction houses across the country have seen fierce bidding whenever one of these rare 1982 varieties comes to light. Stories abound of collectors finding them in old jars or forgotten rolls of pennies, tucked away decades ago and only now revealing their worth. One man in Ohio discovered a 1982 small-date copper penny while searching through his grandfather's coin collection and was stunned when it brought him more than $25,000 at auction. Another collector unearthed a double-die 1982 penny in nearly perfect condition that sold for close to $50,000. These finds spark excitement because they remind us that anyone, from seasoned numismatists to casual hobbyists, can stumble upon history hiding in their change. The Lincoln cent itself holds a unique place in our culture. As the first circulating U.S. coin to feature a real person, it broke new ground when introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln on his 100th birthday. For more than a century, it has passed through countless hands and witnessed countless stories. The 1982 penny, with its transitional quirks and hidden rarities, adds another chapter to that remarkable legacy, showing how even a coin designed to be spent and forgotten can endure as a symbol of history and craftsmanship. So the next time you find yourself with a handful of pennies, don't rush to dismiss them. Look closer. Check the dates. Weigh them if you can. Compare the design details. Because if you're lucky enough to uncover a rare variety or an extraordinary error from that transitional year, you could be holding a piece of copper and zinc worth between $50,000 and $115,000. In a world where everything seems disposable, the 1982 penny reminds us that sometimes the smallest things are worth the most, if only we're willing to take the time to notice. Every now and then, something extraordinary hides in the most ordinary places. You may not even notice it at first, a flash of copper glinting in the sunlight, resting at the bottom of your pocket or rattling in a jar on your dresser. A penny. The smallest, humblest coin in American currency. But what if I told you that one of those pennies, minted in 2001, could be worth more than $100,000? Tonight, we're peeling back the layers of history, craftsmanship, and serendipity to uncover the story of the 2001 US 1-cent penny, and why collectors today are willing to pay a small fortune for what many people overlook. The 2001 Lincoln cent arrived at the dawn of a new millennium, a symbol of continuity in a world that was changing fast. Computers, cell phones, and the internet were transforming everyday life, yet the penny, carrying the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln, kept clinking into circulation just as it had since 1909. Struck at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, billions of these pennies poured into the economy that year. At first glance, they appeared no different from the countless others minted over the decades. But as always, the story lies in the details, and in the mistakes. By 2001, the U.S. Mint was producing pennies with a zinc core coated in copper, a composition first adopted in the early 1980s to reduce production costs. But even with decades of experience, the Mint's high-speed operations were still vulnerable to errors. Dies wore out. Blanks were sometimes mismatched. And sometimes, tiny misalignments created doubling effects that collectors dream of finding. For the discerning eye, 2001 turned out to be a remarkable year for rare varieties, errors, and anomalies hiding within the most unassuming of coins. Among the most prized are the 2001 Lincoln cents featuring dramatic double die obverse errors. Careful examination under magnification reveals distinct doubling in the inscriptions, particularly in "Liberty, in God We Trust," and the date itself. The doubling effect happens when the die shifts slightly between strikes, creating a ghost-like shadow of the letters or numbers. These errors are rare and visually striking, making them highly desirable to collectors who specialize in modern varieties. High-grade examples of these double dies can command breathtaking prices when they come to auction, but doubling wasn't the only surprise lurking in 2001 pennies. Transitional and off-metal errors also emerged, pennies struck on improper planchets, such as blanks meant for foreign coins or other denominations. Some of these rare errors weigh less than the standard 2.5 grams or exhibit unusual colors or finishes because of the wrong metal content. Imagine spotting a 2001 penny with a silvery sheen, only to discover it was mistakenly struck on a dime planchet. Such mistakes are so rare that they send ripples of excitement through the numismatic community whenever one surfaces. And then there are striking errors like off-center strikes, broad strikes, or coins with partial missing designs due to grease-filled dies. While minor versions of these errors are relatively common, dramatic examples in pristine condition, especially from a modern date like 2001, can be extremely valuable. The market for these anomalies has grown in recent years as collectors appreciate the challenge of finding rare errors from modern circulation coins. The design of the Lincoln cent in 2001 still featured the beloved Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a motif that had appeared since 1959 and remained a staple of American coinage until the bicentennial redesign in 2009. That familiar marble monument, rendered in precise detail, served as a backdrop for countless Americans' daily lives. But for collectors, the 2001 penny is more than a nostalgic keepsake. It's a hidden gem from a time when the mint was churning out billions of coins and yet couldn't avoid the occasional, fascinating mistake. Stories have surfaced of collectors and everyday people alike discovering rare 2001 pennies by sheer luck. A retired teacher in Pennsylvania, while sorting through a jar of coins for her grandchildren, spotted a 2001 penny that seemed off. The letters in "Liberty" were clearly doubled, and the date had a ghostly echo. She sent it in for certification and was stunned when it graded as a rare double die obverse in nearly mint state condition. At auction, it brought her over $70,000, more than she ever dreamed a penny could be worth. Another collector in Texas purchased a bag of uncirculated 2001 pennies from a dealer and discovered within it an off-metal strike, a penny struck on a blank meant for a foreign coin. The coin's weight was wrong, and its color was subtly different. That coin sold privately for just under $85,000 to a specialist collector who had been hunting for such a piece for years. Auction records continue to tell the same thrilling story, that among the billions of ordinary 2001 pennies out there, a few extraordinary examples hide quietly, waiting for someone to notice. These rare coins often fetch prices between $40,000 and $106,000, depending on their rarity, condition, and appeal. For collectors, finding one is like striking gold, a testament to patience, knowledge, and a little bit of luck. So the next time you dump a handful of pennies on the counter or pour them into a Coinstar machine, stop for a moment. Look closer. Examine the date. Tilt it under the light and watch how the lettering glimmers. If you see something unusual, doubling in the inscriptions, an odd color, or an off-center strike, set it aside and investigate further. Because in that pile of pocket change could be a 2001 penny worth between $40,000 and $106,000, a reminder that even in our fast-paced world, treasures still hide in the smallest of places, waiting for those who know where, and how, to look. Sometimes, the most remarkable stories are hiding right under our noses, or tucked inside our wallets. You may not give it a second thought when you spot a coppery penny in the bottom of a jar or rattling across the floor of your car. After all, it's just a penny, right? But what if I told you that one of those little coins, minted in 2008, could actually be worth more than $80,000? Tonight, we're taking you on a journey through time, craftsmanship, and unexpected fortune to uncover the hidden story of the 2008 US 1-cent penny, and why some collectors are willing to pay a small fortune for it. By 2008, the Lincoln penny had already been a staple of American currency for nearly a century. It had seen 2 world wars, a Great Depression, the moon landing, and the rise of the digital age, all while carrying the steady, familiar face of Abraham Lincoln. The design on the obverse was still Victor D. Brenner's iconic portrait, while the reverse still displayed the Lincoln Memorial, as it had since 1959. In a way, the 2008 penny was the end of an era. Just 1 year later, the Mint would introduce 4 special reverse designs in honor of Lincoln's bicentennial. But as history would soon reveal, it was the 2008 penny, not the celebrated 2009 issues, that ended up hiding some of the most valuable surprises. The Philadelphia and Denver mints produced billions of pennies in 2008, most destined for routine use in vending machines, cash registers, and piggy banks. But even in an era of modern technology and precision, the Mint wasn't immune to mistakes. And in the world of numismatics, mistakes are where the magic happens. The most celebrated of these magical mistakes are the 2008 Lincoln cent struck with dramatic double-die obverse errors. At first glance, the coin may appear perfectly ordinary. But a closer look under magnification reveals a haunting doubling of the inscriptions, "Liberty, in God we trust," and even the date itself. These double dies occur when the die itself shifts slightly between impressions during its creation, producing an eerie, shadow-like doubling that collectors find irresistible. These errors are rare, visually dramatic, and highly prized, especially in high grades, but that's only the beginning. In 2008, collectors also began noticing pennies struck on improper planchets, blank metal discs intended for different coins entirely. There are examples of 2008 pennies struck on dime planchets, producing lighter coins with a silvery hue. Others were struck on planchets meant for foreign coins, resulting in odd weights or colors. These off-metal strikes are among the rarest types of mint errors, and when they do appear, they can set the auction floor buzzing with excitement. And then there are the off-center strikes, where the entire design is misaligned, leaving a crescent of blank metal on one side. Or the broad strikes, where the coin is struck without a collar, producing a wider, flatter penny with no defined edge. While minor versions of these errors are relatively common, the most dramatic and well-preserved examples are highly collectible. What makes the 2008 penny even more intriguing to collectors is its place in numismatic history. As the final full year of the Lincoln Memorial reverse, the 2008 penny marks the close of a 50-year chapter in U.S. coinage. That historic significance, combined with the scarcity of major errors, has made it a key modern issue for those who specialize in hunting down hidden treasures in recent coins. One memorable story comes from a college student in Ohio who stumbled upon a jar of pennies while helping his grandmother clean her attic. Out of habit, he began examining them closely, and spotted something strange about a 2008 penny. The word "Liberty" looked blurred, almost ghostly. A local coin dealer confirmed it as a double-die obverse in nearly mint state condition. At auction, it fetched just over $62,000, more than enough to pay for the rest of his tuition. And then another collector in Florida purchased a sealed roll of 2008 pennies from a coin show and discovered within it a perfectly struck off-metal error, a penny struck on a blank intended for a 10-cent piece. Its silvery sheen and sharp details helped it achieve a top grade and an even higher price when it finally sold to a specialist collector for nearly $75,000. Auction records tell the same thrilling tale again and again, that in the sea of ordinary 2008 pennies, there are a handful of truly extraordinary pieces, each with its own story to tell. These coins often bring anywhere from $30,000 to $84,000 when they surface at auctions, depending on their rarity, grade, and the uniqueness of the error. So the next time you're handed a handful of change at the store, don't just toss the pennies aside. Take a moment to really look at them. Tilt them under the light, examine the inscriptions, and pay attention to the weight, color, and strike. That unassuming little penny in your hand might just turn out to be one of the rare 2008 Lincoln cents worth between $30,000 and $84,000, a quiet reminder that even in the smallest corners of everyday life, extraordinary treasures are waiting for someone curious enough to find them.